For this chapter, we're going to analyze graphs of a quadratic function. First is asking us to find the vertex, find the axis of symmetry, determine whether there's a maximum or minimum, and find that value. Then after, graph the function. Okay, so let's start with this polynomial right here. X squared plus 4x plus 5. Well, first, I want you to determine what's A, what's B, and what's C. A is, well, if there's no number in front of x squared, you have to assume that the number is 1. Here B is 4, and C is 5. Now the vertex can be found using two approaches. One is completing the square, which you've learned already on the previous chapter. The second one is using the formula. So the vertex formula is as follows. V equals negative b over 2a, comma, f of negative b over 2a. Now that we have found a, b, and c, we can plug it in the formula. Negative b over 2a is going to be negative 4 over 2 times 1, comma, f of negative 4 over 2 times 1. Now, negative 4 over 2 is negative 2, f of negative 2. So let's determine what's f of negative 2, meaning let's plug in negative 2 for x. F of negative 2 is equal to negative 2 squared plus 4 times negative 2 plus 5. Negative 2 squared is 4. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8 plus 5. 4 minus 8 is negative 4 plus 5 equals to 1. So my y-coordinate for the vertex is negative 2, comma, 1. Now, how do we determine the vertex using completing the square? Well, just like in the previous videos, when we completed the square, we need to use a different formula. So let's use a different color. The formula to complete the square is b over 2 squared. Okay? So let's complete the square. So you have f of x equals x squared plus 4x plus 5. B is still 4, so we have x squared plus 4x. Now, let's plug it in. 4 over 2 squared equals 2 squared, which is 4. So we're adding 4, subtracting 4, and then plus 5. Now the reason we add 4 and subtract 4 is to get 0, right? We don't want to change my function. So these three terms are going to factor into the number that you have before squaring. So x plus 2 squared, negative 4 plus 5 is 1. Notice the transformation. X plus 2 means we're going to the left 2, and plus 1 outside means we're going up 1. So it gives you the same vertex. Now, second question is find the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry uses the vertex coordinate of x. So the axis of symmetry is x equals, in this case, negative 2. Now it wants us to determine if it's a maximum or minimum and find the value. In order to determine if it's a maximum or minimum, you need a. In this case, a is 1. Now, there's two options. Either a is positive or a is negative. If A is positive, you have a minimum. If A is negative, you have a maximum. Therefore, since A is positive in this example, we have a minimum. And the minimum value is your y coordinate, which is 1. Now, let's graph. So the vertex is -2, 1, right here. If you plug in -1 for your function, you get 2. Now, since this is the axis of symmetry, that means that everything to the left is the same size. So -3 is also 2. If you plug in 0, you get 5. Therefore, -4 is also 5. And just trace the graph. Now for our second example, -3x squared minus 3x plus 1, I'm going to choose a different color for it. Let me separate this so it doesn't interfere. Again, the vertex, I will not complete the square for this one. I will ask you to do it on your own, but I will find the vertex for you. So the vertex, using the formula, is -b over 2a, comma, f of -b over 2a. Now, what's a, b, and c? Remember, a is the number multiplying x squared. In this case, is -3. b is the number multiplying x. In this case, -3. And c is the one without any x's, which is 1. So this becomes -b. Careful, there's two negatives now. So it's -3 over 2 times -3, comma, f of that number. So negative times negative is positive. -3 times 2 is negative. So f of 3 over -6. Now, if you simplify 3 over -6, you get -1/2, comma, f of -1/2. Now, as you might see already, we have to deal with fractions, which you guys are already very familiar with. So let's plug in -1/2 into my function and see what do I get. So you have f of -1/2 to be -3 times -1/2 squared minus 3 times -1/2 plus 1. Remember, what's -1/2 squared? It's -1/2 times -1/2. That gives me positive 1 over 4. Negative times negative is plus. 3 over 1 times 1 over 2 is 3 over 2. Again, same reasoning here. We make -3 into a fraction. We multiply across. So it's going to be -3 over 4 plus 3/2 plus 1. Now, how do we add fractions? We use a common denominator. So we have, what's the common denominator between 4, 2, and 1? The common denominator is 4. So -3/4 plus 3/2 times 2 over 2 plus 1 over 1 times 4 over 4. -3/4 plus 6 over 4 plus 4 over 4. That gives us, well, 6 minus 3 is 3, plus 4 over 4 is 7/4. And that will be your y coordinate for the vertex. So that's going to be equal to -1/2, comma, 7/4. Now we find the axis of symmetry. Again, similar to the previous problem, the axis of symmetry is your x-coordinate for the vertex. So the axis of symmetry is x equals -1/2. Now, what determines if it's a maximum or minimum? It's your value of a. We know that a is -3. Therefore, we have a maximum. So the maximum value is your y-coordinate, so 7/4. Now we graph. So -1/2, 7/4. It's around here somewhere. Okay? That's your maximum value, and it's your vertex as well. So this one is -1/2, 7/4. Now, if we choose to have equal to 0, our function f of 0, as you can see, 0 minus 0 plus 1 is just 1. And because it's symmetrical, then that means the -1 is also 0. So now you can look for another point, for example, f of 1. Okay? If we plug in 1, we get -3 minus 3 plus 1. So -6 plus 1 is -5. So when x equals to 1, you have -5. That means this one is also -5. And then you trace, oops, got a little off. Then you trace it. And that will be your graph. And that will be all the information needed to solve those two problems. If you have any questions, write them on the comments below or ask me in class. Thank you.